Next up, we have our superstar session presented by Chris Hamilton from Genvid, our sponsors today on the Big Screen Gaming track. So we're very grateful to him and to Genvid for making all this possible. The topic is designing for interactive game streams. This is all about how to incorporate your stream viewers into your vision. Lots of interesting stuff happening in this field right now, and we're seeing lots of games sort of taking advantage of streaming viewers. So I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. Chris, you there? You ready?
Yes, I am. I thought I had a different background, but I guess this one will do.
That's lovely. The Aurora Borealis. It's very pretty. Thank you. As always, guys, as you're watching, drop your questions into the chat, and we'll get to them when Chris is wrapping up. But I'll hand over to Chris. Cheers.
Okay, hi everybody. Greetings from Helsinki. I'm Christopher Hamilton, and I'll be talking about the future of live streaming for esports and interactive gaming. I'll cover a little bit about myself and Genvid Technologies. I'll talk about massive interactive live events, or MILES, about interactive streaming for spectators. We'll have a Q&A session, and I'll be joined by my colleague Alan, and then we'll run a public demo of a game called Chicken, and we're actually very excited about this demo. So my name is Christopher Hamilton. I'm a Director of Developer Relations in Europe for Genvid Technologies. I have been in the industry since 2007. Here are some of the better known companies that I've worked for on the left. I'm an American citizen, but I used to live in St. Petersburg, Russia, and I've been based in Helsinki, Finland since 2014. I've been mainly in production and partner relation roles with a lot of live ops experience at Rovio, but I also feel very strongly about giving back to the community by working with various organizations, which you can see here on the right. I'm on the boards of the IGDA and the Finnish Game Jam, and I'm still very involved in IGDA Finland, the IGDA Finnish chapter, and like to mention that we're organizing Leadership Day, a one-day online conference dedicated on how we build companies, teams, and working cultures to make better games, and that will take place on September 28th. My undergraduate degree was on the environment and the media, so I'm also working on a UNEP initiative called Playing for the Planet. So if anybody is interested in any of these initiatives, do feel free to reach out to me. Genvid Technologies was founded in 2016 by some Square Enix veterans. It is a US-based startup with offices in New York, Montreal, LA, Tokyo, and Berlin. The company is backed by some leading games VCs like Galaxy Interactive and Makers Fund, and we have people from both of those funds on our board. And we have amazing advisors like ex-Square Enix CEO Ichiwada, digital media executive Matt Ball, Anna Sweet, who is instrumental in building Valve and Steam into what they are today, and JT Gleason, who was at Twitch for more than 8 years in key roles leading both partner and developer relations. Here is our team of awesome people working out of those offices, highly talented folks that are a lot of fun to work with. Many have worked at Blizzard, Riot, Square Enix, Ubisoft, Wargaming, and have rich experience in game development and esports. You can see the variety in terms of ethnicity and gender, diversity and background, experience and age, and we think it's important to have a diverse team to help us tackle a lot of the streaming experiences that we're helping companies create. And we are hiring, so do feel free to check out our website for details. The media has covered us. If you haven't heard of us in terms of public streams, we have partnered with the top esports broadcasters and interactive streaming and stats experts like Stats Helix to create interactive experiences on Twitch for the Counter-Strike majors, and we've powered the last 4 Counter-Strike majors. Our mission is to power the future of interactive media. We believe that people love shared experiences, and particularly when their participation matters. And be it gaming or sports or reality TV, these are the events that become water cooler moments in the office, or these days what people are kind of randomly chatting about in the random channel on Slack. We're already working with top tier platforms, leagues, and events to create these experiences. Games and traditional media are at a point of convergence, and perhaps it's better to describe this as an ongoing evolution of convergence, as media is trying to become more engaging, like video games are, And some games are addressing larger audiences of spectators by creating non-gaming experiences and interactions for them. So when talking about interactive streaming, it could be something like the Netflix choose your own adventure style movie Bandersnatch, or the Zoom revolution that we're in right now with people talking to one another, following each other on streams and asking questions. Long story short, both sides are trying to be more interactive and increase their mass market appeal. This is something that's happening right now, and game developers should be thinking about this ongoing shift in paradigm and the new forms of gameplay that players and viewers can have together, and we'll touch on that a bit later. Again, this is about live ops and shared experiences, or these massive interactive live events, or what we like to call miles. Fortnite is organizing massive online events like DJ Marshmallow's performance last February that reached a reported 10 million viewers, only to be eclipsed by the Party Royale anchored by Travis Scott in May that reached a staggering 12.3 million. And when Epic founder Tim Sweeney was in Helsinki last year, he spoke about how players met in Fortnite, not only to play Fortnite, but to chat with one another, to watch other people play together, and to have a shared experience. And so here, games are building experiences that appeal to more than just core gamers as they reach out to a wider audience. And this is true for non-gaming events. May 1st in Finland, called Vappu, it's sort of a cross between Labor Day and the start of spring celebrations. And traditionally, people are out having picnics and celebrating in town. And unfortunately, we couldn't do that this year. But there's a VR company here in Helsinki that made an online May Day concert experience that was broadcast on YouTube. And I happened to be in Hangouts for a work call when this started, and I couldn't understand why I kept getting dropped out of the call. I'd never experienced that in Finland. We have pretty good internet here. It turns out roughly 12.5% of the entire country was watching this online event. And more interesting for us, about 150,000 people were actually interacting with that live stream, creating avatars and having fun with it online. And just, it's interesting to note that this was deliberately done on a live streaming channel and not broadcast on television so they could have that interactivity. There is a long history of technological innovations creating new entertainment formats, particularly in video. But you don't have to be a huge company like Epic Games because Genvid's technology is helping small and indie studios get in on the action and be part of a wave that is bringing the best aspects of lean back TV, lean in gaming, and live entertainment all together. And here the audience will matter, and the individuals themselves can decide their own level of involvement or influence. And so now I'll apologize to all the people who aren't interested in sports, but it ends up being a really good analogy to explain what we're talking about, because sports, like video games, are games with rules and objectives. And while miles are not exclusive to sports, again, they could be concert events and reality TV, these are things that bring people together. But the examples from sports are just closer to gaming. And in order for games to be disruptive in the space, we need to look at some of the success that we've seen in traditional media. And traditional media has a service design that games really don't have, and that is a focus that's beyond just the player. We have a larger view of what it is to be a sports fan, and that's because there's an entire service design around that. There are people that are playing in a physical stadium in the world, and then there are people that go pay money to go to that stadium and watch the event. And these are the people that are paying the highest cost per capita. And then there's also the largest demographic, people watching the game at home on TV. But again, there's a service design behind this that goes from player to participant in the stadium to viewer, where the player is actually just a concentrator for the funnel. So if we juxtapose this in the digital world, games in this case, you have people playing, the participant doesn't really exist, and then we jump straight to viewers. And it's that participant experience that ends up being the core of what the viewer experience is based on. If you are at the stadium, you have the people that are closest to the field and the best access to the live players, and the people at home are watching facsimiles of that participant experience in the stadium. You have different camera angles, zooming in, zooming out to see different players. You have shots of people in the stands that almost make you feel like you could be in the stands if you're watching this at home. And this allows for the viewers to enjoy that in-stadium participant experience. And for the most part, in the digital world, we have jumped from the player experience to the viewer experience, and we are just watching the player view for everything. And that's not necessarily the best way to build experiences for viewers. So right now we have a growing underserved market, which is the viewer. Historically, developers have been focused on the players. They create great gaming experiences and they know how to monetize them. And developers are only now just starting to get comfortable with thinking of viewers as part of the ecosystem, which is why it's really exciting to talk about this and to be in this space. Twitch continues to post record quarters, both in terms of hours watched and viewer counts on the platform. And in terms of hours watched, Twitch jumped from 2.3 million hours watched to 5.1 million from the last quarter of 2009 to the second quarter of 2020. The average viewer count went from 1.2 million at the end of 2009 to 1.4 million in February, then as high as 2.5 million in April before leveling off to 2.2 million average viewers over the summer. Clearly, the ongoing global pandemic has caused a spike in viewership, but there was significant growth before COVID-19, and this is more COVID accelerating the trend here. And again, apologies to the people in the audience who don't know anything about baseball, but in many ways, this slide really highlights my point here of why viewers are underserved. Most streaming experiences look something like this. Streamers can only broadcast from the player's perspective, and it's really difficult to follow what is happening in the game with just this view. Strategy, tactics, team coordination are all lost without giving the audience an understanding of the bigger picture. And I, as a viewer, if I'm watching a game on Twitch, if I don't play that game myself, I really don't have an idea of what's going on. And if I don't understand what's going on, then it's not particularly engaging for me to watch that. So it's important to note that game developers, and not streamers, but game developers are in the best position to address viewerships of their games. Game developers have the ability to put in new camera angles and create interactive experiences that address the viewers and help them understand what is happening in the game. Professional sports are spectator-driven businesses, and game developers are only now starting to build that spectator-centric value and tap into this audience. So we at Genvid are focused on the participant experience. We feel by creating a value-driven participant experience that has multiple layers of engagement where the viewers can affect what they are watching, we can create a really cool funnel that benefits everyone in the ecosystem, players, participants, and viewers alike. So again, thinking of the physical world, players aren't paying. For the most part, they are being paid. Participants that are in the stadium are paying the most, but are likely having the most fun because they're right there in the action and they can feel the energy at the stadium. But it is because of that participant experience that they are able to drive most of the revenue through broadcast rights. Players are the core demographic that developers are thinking about today. They are basically the only monetized segment. And interactive viewers, again, another way of saying participants, are an opportunity. Game developers make interactive experiences geared towards players, but there is an opportunity in making these interactive experiences for viewers. And spectators benefit from an enhanced, more enjoyable, and more understandable experience that will help drive fandom and value. So what does this mean? People go to stadiums to enjoy that rich experience, and they get that through understanding the game, or music if it's a concert. But they want to go to the event knowing that they are competent about what they are watching. So here are some ways that we can add value and create enjoyment, competency, and fandom. So on the left here, we have bird's eye camera angles, maps that can be toggled on and off that provide viewers with the big picture. I can select an angle that works for me. I could pull up live stats and that help me follow my favorite player, or compare my favorite player against some other fan favorites. Jumping to the middle slide, unlike sports, video games are constantly evolving. We live in a world of live ops, and rules and gameplay just change over time. So it's important to tell the viewers what's going on so they understand what they are watching. And this is also super important to help novices get into the experience. And then finally, on the right, viewer interactions, where the viewer can actually reach out and touch the game and affect what's happening by providing a player with a lifeline by sending some extra health, or impeding them by setting some traps. When talking about the different types of interactivity, we like to structure our thinking a little bit. So there are 3 different tiers, the first of which is informational. And again, this is giving viewers information. And the goal here is to have a competent viewer. So like being able to adjust the volume on a traditional broadcast, you should be able to adjust things like stats and data, and being able to toggle on and off things like what's in a player's inventory, or maps where the players are and where they can be located on those maps. And this is just data that's sent along with the stream, so it's not particularly difficult to implement. The next tier is customizable. And this is the idea that you have different demographics and interest groups that are watching your game, and giving each of those groups a native experience. So it could be a localized version in their own language, or just allowing them to cater information to a specific team or a specific player that the audience is following. It could be something like having a different camera or different language options. And in esports, we're already being segmented with, say, English or Korean specific channels. And this helps us create that home and away feeling that shoutcasters are often talking about with specific teams. So the easiest way to think about this is just having custom cameras and data feeds with separate chat and cheering functions. And this is just a web overlay on top of video. Again, it's not that hard to implement. And then last, and this is usually where game developers jump first, that's the influential tier. And this is where viewers can reach out, touch the game, and have an effect on player experience, be it through cheering or something more impactful. It could be something nuanced, like cheering that buffs the NPCs or boss characters in a game, and it makes them more powerful, and the viewers enjoy that. And then maybe as a result, players get better drops as a result of that. Or it could be something super impactful, like buying a grenade and throwing it into the middle of the match and seeing what that does, or sending in supply drops and watching all the players race after the goods. We start with informational simply because it's the easiest to implement. It's just exposing data and putting it in a web overlay. Customizable takes a little more time to figure out camera angles. It can be tricky working with developers who maybe didn't think about the entire world and only sort of drew part of the world that the players would see. So by putting in a player-centric camera, they might expose parts of the world that weren't actually drawn. So some of these things need to come into consideration. And then obviously influential is the hardest. It takes a fair amount of time and effort to figure out player balance and enabling viewer inputs to affect a game in ways that it doesn't totally destroy the player experience. And actually working with the developers to solve some of these problems is probably the favorite part of my job, to be honest. So why does one want to do this? Because if you build an audience and fandom, you can monetize it. Maybe it's a way to attract more players into the game. And both informational and customizable tiers can be put behind a paywall or paid for by a sponsor or monetized through ads. The influential tier opens up possibilities of microtransactions where viewers could be buying consumables or cosmetics that affect their experience as well as everyone around them. And I'll note here that as of February 2020, 590 million bits have been cheered on Twitch. So this empowers viewers to become active participants in the ecosystem, helps drive the massive interactive live events that I was talking about earlier. So key takeaways, it is still early days, but there are a lot of potential out there. Again, developers are in the driving seat here. And I personally can't wait to see what ingenious ideas the developers out there in the audience will come up with next. So thank you. If anyone has any questions, don't feel to reach out. I can see there are a bunch of questions in the chat. My email address is listed here below. Our SDK is available for free on our website. And with that, I'll take questions. And I think Alan is ready to join the call and help us answer some questions.
That's right. Yeah, Alan and coming in to help answer. We've got several questions, as you say, got a number. Let's start from the top. How hard is it for developers to implement your solutions?
It really depends on the game style itself, I would say. Like there are a lot of games that can be difficult and complex, and then there are very simple integrations that can be done rather quickly. We have one game that was done by a Japanese developer called Space Sweeper, and he was able to integrate all 3 layers actually in one day. Admittedly, he's probably a super programmer, but like it doesn't have to be that difficult, and it really depends on the options that people select.
Okay, terrific. And which genres of game would you say would work best with your solution? Obviously, you've used Battle Royale as an example, but clearly some genres, the solution will be relevant to some developers more than others, right?
Yeah, sure. I think anything that has a more visual aspect, multiplayer games where you have competitions that are happening tend to fit the genre best, but there are a lot of game styles out there that match reality TV, or social deducting games become kind of an interesting use case. But again, going back to the sort of interactive live events, I think that can be applied to pretty much any game and build something around that as well. So it can be very versatile.
Cool. Yeah, I suppose that your objective really is to just enable whatever developers can come up with. Is sort of up to their imaginations. So this is sort of a new subsector, a new technology. How big do you think it will ultimately get? Do you and do you think revenues will be additive, or will it cannibalize the things that developers have to worry about spending already?
I think this is really additive. I think most of the people that really want to play the games are going to continue playing the games. I think you will have fans that are going to follow some people that are happening inside of these experiences. But I think this is a way for games to actually reach out to wider audiences.
Mm. In the sense of just exciting people to get involved and participate, or yeah, okay. So what do you think is the big vision then? Like, where do you want to be, or think we can be in sort of 5 years' time with this tech?
That's a big question, and I think it's really up to the developers to understand how they want to leverage the technology. There are lots of super interesting things that are happening, but I see this being, in many ways, also part of transmedia on a wider level as well.
So we've already seen the phenomenon, for instance, of Twitch plays Pokemon, or Twitch. Just recently, we had Twitch tries to land a Boeing 747 in a flight simulator. It's janky, but kind of amazing that they managed to do it at all. Like, do you think one day we'll have games being built specifically for multiple players rather than just?
Absolutely. I think you'll have very casual experiences where you've got multiple viewers that are in there impacting what's happening. There are lots of things that can be done in different game styles that are collaborative nature, and then there are others that are more competitive in nature. And then there's a whole subset of people that just want to watch all the madness happen. And I think that's in many ways the kind of the exciting part. But they can watch the madness and jump into the fun as well and have an impact on what's happening. So it goes back to the idea that people love to be engaged and watch all these things, but it's more engaging when they can participate.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, can you give us any sort of specific case examples of games developers that are implementing this interaction right now? Yeah.
I don't know if anybody saw Robin's talk earlier. I believe he was yesterday, but Retroit is a persistent MMO game being done by a studio here in Helsinki. And it's a mobile first game done in Godot. And they actually saw the Twitch overlay and being able to have viewers interact with the game in a way as a core pillar of their game. It's for them another entry point. It's a way to keep people engaged. And it's a way to, again, have a sort of interplay between players and viewers. And that's one example. We have 10, 15 projects that are game-specific projects that are going through right now.
I remember I saw a game at EGX Rezzed a couple of years ago, the DRG initiative, something like that, which was a sort of a multiplayer shooter that was also a little bit battle royale, and viewers could participate in the game by deciding where certain weapons got dropped and dispatching care packages, it was inspired by the Hunger Games and all of that, where actual, viewers of the Hunger Games in the movie or the book would send out care packages to their favorite participants. So I guess that's another example.
And this, you have to be kind of careful because you don't really want to upset the balance of the actual players. If they feel disenfranchised because they're being negatively impacted by the viewers, it becomes a tricky thing.
Yeah, I suppose they feel upset if the audience picked the favorite for one reason or another. Yeah. Okay. So on a similar note, actually, then, like there are other ways that this could balk the experience for streamers and players. Like, would giving away a streamer's in-game location have a negative impact on their play? For example, by encouraging stream sniping.
Alan, maybe you want to answer that?
Oh, can you guys hear me? Sorry, there's a button on my headset that mutes, and I always forget to turn it on or off. I think that stream sniping is definitely a concern, but I think that from a design perspective, there are ways to get around it. Doing everything from potentially building in a delay into the feed so that it minimizes or reduces the chances of stream sniping. But then if you do that, then the types of interactions will change a little bit. You may not be able to do something like controlling like an NPC character in the game as a viewer, but maybe you'll be able to do things like item drops, which run on a timer or something like that. So you sort of delay the input time. So I think there are ways to build around that if things like stream sniping do become an issue. But at the same time, I think like it's something where where we sort of put these tools in the hands of designers and developers to work with to come up with these kinds of solutions. And we're able to basically work with whatever people come up with. And if there are new challenges, I think that we are in a good position to be able to solve them and try them out, or to try things out. This is all a very new technology, a very new medium and concept for people to wrap their heads around. So it's an exciting time. But yeah, there are definitely things that we have to be careful about. Not everyone on the internet is going to be a nice person. Going back to you mentioning the flight simulator Twitch earlier, I just saw a post or a tweet from Rami, who just mentioned that the latest 747 flight ended disastrously as they are about to land, and someone decided to just gear up at the last second. Right. And so, yeah. So these are things that you just have to design around, but I don't think that they're impossible or unsolvable. But that's what makes this all really fun and exciting for us.
Yeah, sure. We had a related question to that. How do you think we can balance viewer interaction against orchestrated cheating? I guess we touched on that a little bit. If we might skip past that unless there's anything you want to add.
Chris, you got any thoughts?
No, I think it becomes a design question. That I think things will happen. People will discover exploits. Game developers will work around those exploits. I mean, this is very commonly seen in multiplayer games everywhere. So,
yeah. So the technical question here, the tech looks really interesting, but what's the bandwidth impact? And is there a risk that these sorts of elements could slow down gameplay?
Well, the gameplay is kind of completely separate in the sense that it's, our SDK goes into the spectator build. So we're not actually in the sort of the game itself. And then we're just, on Twitch or YouTube or whatever streaming service people want to integrate into. So from slowing down the actual game, I don't see it affecting things.
But maybe the viewer experience?
With the viewer experience, I think there's going to be a slight bit of latency, but a lot of the designs that go into the thinking sort of compensate that or inform the viewer to let them sort of get a heads up as to what's going to happen. So in many ways, the viewer can kind of see into the future for that duration of latency, and it allows them to have sort of a better sort of experience when it comes to that in a way. And then as things speed up, these problems are going to disappear. So.
Cool. I know we have a demo. There's two, and some of the questions that remain in the chat have sort of been touched on, like the Hunger Games scenario where certain viewers can favoritize players. I'll just maybe wrap with these last two questions here, which are basically the same. Where in the development cycle can your solution be introduced? How early should developers start thinking about it? Is it good to start from the design stage with this sort of thing in mind, or can we just bolt it in towards the end?
I think with all things game design, it's better to think about these things from the beginning so that you can think about potential problems and troubleshoot them as you go. And the design thinking, I think, as both Alan and I said, this is new. It requires a lot of out-of-the-box thinking. Developers are not used to working with the tech. As an example, I was working with some people that wanted to experiment with the tech during the Global Game Jam last year, and I met with them in their office, and we were going over game design ideas. And there were a number of great ideas that came out, but it was kind of like, this is interesting, but you'd actually just, this is a better multiplayer game than it is like a viewer streamer or a viewer player type interaction. And so I think the earlier you can start thinking about it, the earlier you can kind of pull us in and start having these design issues, the easier it will be to mitigate potential design problems down the road.
Very cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, great. So we believe we have a demo now. Well, let the stage manager spotlight your screen, and if you'd like to launch into the Twitch thing for like 10 minutes, we'll take a look at this.
Yeah, sure. Like I said, this is going to be an interactive demo, so I'm not just going to be simply doing all the the playing myself. Everybody here will be able to do the same thing that I will be doing also. I believe this will probably be the first interactive demo at a Pocket Gamer Connects this year, as far as I'm aware, and potentially at any online conference so far too. So this is exciting for us. All you need right now for folks who are interested in participating is to make sure that you have logged into your Twitch account in your browser. If you don't have a Twitch account, now it's a good time to set one up very quickly. It's mostly painless, I promise. And while you guys are doing that, I am going to walk everyone through this game. So I'm just going to do a little bit of internet magic. Oh, too much internet magic. I think my camera just disappeared. Well, that's okay. You don't necessarily need to see me right now. Just a quick introduction. My name's Alan. I'm a producer at Genvid Technologies. And today I'm walking everybody through a game of Chicken Arena. Chicken Arena is a game mode as part of a larger game called Chicken, which is a game that's currently out on early access on Steam. It is a survival sandbox game where you're exploring a mysterious island with all these wonderfully strange and funny looking creatures. You will be able to help not only support the creatures that are in the world, but you'll also be able to create your own interesting creations as part of the experience. The arena mode that we're playing through is a gauntlet style challenge. It's a gauntlet Coliseum style challenge where you'll be taking 3 creatures that we have brought to the arena and going against an ever increasing gauntlet of tougher and tougher animals. So in order for you to begin with the interaction on Twitch, we will send out a URL, not yet, but we will send out a URL. Once you get to this URL, all you need to do is open up this little icon on the right side of the screen where it asks for you access to the overlay or to your Twitch ID data. And you just simply hit grant and then just hit refresh. And what will happen is that you will now see a tutorial mode that will walk you through this. And I'll walk you through it now. You can always skip it later if it comes up. So in this game, we as a group will be going through and helping these 3 creatures fight against these other creatures in a variety of different ways. So the first thing that we will be able to do is vote for a creature. Like I said, I'll be bringing 3 creatures. We'll be able to select the favorite one that we want to bring into the fight. And we'll vote for him as a group. The next thing that we will be able to do is that during the fight itself, we'll be able to cheer for this creature. And we'll be able to cheer for them by clapping. And there will be this circular button over here on the bottom left that we can click on. As we start clicking on this, the blue circle on the outside will slowly begin to dissipate. Once it runs out, you will have to wait until the circle regenerates before you can cheer again. What does that cheering do? Well, it does a few things. So the first important thing is when you look at these bars at the very top, there are 3 bars that will track the stats of a creature. The first one will track the health bar, which obviously once it runs out of health, it'll get knocked out. The second bar, the middle one, is the energy bar, which allows the animal to use special attacks and move around the map. And the final one at the very bottom is the ultimate attack. As we start clapping together as a group, we will be able to help our creature build up its ultimate attack bar. And once it maxes out that ultimate attack bar, it will be able to unleash a super attack. And it'll be amplified, and it'll be able to do extra damage over a short period of time. If you want to learn more information about these different creatures, they all look really bizarre, but don't worry, these different looks are actually grant the creature different abilities. And you'll be able to look at the different abilities by clicking on their player portrait or the character portrait in the top corners. And you'll be able to see things like their stats, as well as the information for their different types of attacks, which I'll talk about during the matches. And finally, when our creature runs out of health, we will be able to have a moment to rally it and help bring it back. By clapping and cheering for the creature as a group, we'll be able to bring it back to life for just one more chance, one more attack. Hopefully will be enough to defeat the opposing creature. And in between rounds, we will be able to feed and take care of our creature. So we'll be able to feed it raw meat or hamburgers to help build up its energy, or we'll be able to send bandages to help build up its health. Note that the raw meat, hamburger, and bandages all will deduct, they say that they will deduct bits from your account. We have disabled the bit deduction itself, so you can send as many hamburgers and bandages as you want to help heal or power up the creature. So now that I've done that, if you don't mind, if we can send out the URL in the webinar chat. So for everybody to click on that link, and while you guys are doing that, I'm just going to see if I can get back onto the screen. That's weird. Ooh, sorry. If you'll just hang on 1 second, I apologize. I am back. And slightly bigger than I want to be. All right, here we go. So, folks who are jumping on right now, let's take a look at what's going on right now. They've just started a round of the gauntlet. This is the Majestic Feathercat going against the Majestic Legged Snat. Like I said, during the match itself, and feel free to turn on the volume. You'll be able to hear the crowd cheer also as they start fighting, which is also adds a lot to the atmosphere. So like I said before, if you click on the clap button, we'll be able to build up the meter of the Majestic Feathercat. The more you click, the more we power the Majestic Feathercat up. So right here, the Snat, unfortunately, has been amplified, but the Majestic Feathercat is also now amplified. So now they're both able to do extra damage against each other. If we keep cheering, we'll be able to help rebuild that superpower meter as quickly as possible to hopefully give it a second chance for the Feathercat to go against the Snat with its super damage. Feathercat just stunned the Snat and is now powered up and ready to take on the Snat some more. Again, sorry I'm going so quickly. I'm just commentating on the match itself. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. Also, if you are having any issues not seeing things like the icons appear, things like that, refresh the browser, make sure you are logged in, and make sure you have granted access to your Twitch ID to the chicken extension. So you know what, we're just gonna go with this. I actually have never seen so this is a 5 creature battle. I've actually never seen the last creature, and I've never beaten the last creature. So we as a group will be able to go through and see what that looks like. But I won't be able to do this without everyone else's help. So if we all do this together, we should be able to win the whole gauntlet. So as you can see here, the game also lists out the number of claps. So thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Giran Asia. Myself, my Twitch ID is Hey It's Really Allen. I think Hamilton was the last one. So thank you, Chris. So the second match, I believe this is the, well, before that, we can all vote for a different creature. My personal favorite is the Scarlet Cowbird, but the Hefty Repig Dog is also really powerful. The Majestic Feathercat, I think, has the best set of abilities. So feel free to vote for the one that you want. Oh, and again, I know I went through the tutorial very quickly, and I apologize for those of you if it's too fast for you. If you ever want to run the tutorial again, just click on Run Tutorial over here on the left side of the screen. So the Hefty Repig Dog has entered the arena. It has a giant horn on its head, and it's also roughly 2.5 feet high. But it's got a long neck, so we'll see how it goes. Chris, is there anything you want to mention or say anything to anybody about what's going on right now? Or are you just going to run it with, or are you just going to take in the fight with me?
I'm just enjoying the fight in general. I just
Okay.
These guys are so weird looking. I love it.
Yeah. So I was saying before, these different animals have different abilities based on their different life blocks that are attached to them. So, you know, you got these chicken legs over in the repig dog, you got these cow legs, the dino cow crab. If you want to know the different abilities, again, you can just click on the hefty repig dog or the portraits, and then they'll show these different items or abilities. So, for example, the dino cow crab over here has a tail strike, which stuns the enemy. It has a charge ability. It also has a bite. Oh, and the repig dog has already been amplified. So he's going to go to town against the dino cow crab. Dino cow crab is also now amplified, but he's also losing a lot of health very quickly. So we'll see what happens with the repig dog. I think the repig dog is going to be able to destroy the dino cow crab. This is going to be a very easy round, and we'll be able to take on the next challenger very, very quickly. Oh no, dino cow crab actually took in some couple good shots. Ooh, but the dino cow crab is now stunned, and it is going to get knocked out shortly. I think maybe one of the questions that we usually get, and so you can see here the round summary. Only 10 attacks were landed by the repig dog, but obviously by amplifying the animal, we're able to do a bunch of extra damage, which is why we were able to slightly just beat out the dino cow crab. Thank you, Mika, for also joining us as well and playing. Yeah. So here's a repig dog doing a little bit of a victory spin. It also has, so it not only, I believe it has a charge and a bite, but it also, that little thing on its behind is a spider, is a web shooter. So it can also shoot webs at the opponent at a distance. Although the way that this AI is behaving, it generally just kind of runs up to you, turns around and shoots you in the face with a web. That's just how the way the beast communicates, I suppose.
Should we be clapping all the time, or is it strategic?
It's going to be a bit strategic. If you notice that blue circle will dissipate over time. So once it gets down to 0, essentially your claps won't count for the power amplification. So the idea behind this is that we kind of want to encourage viewers to just get into sort of a rhythm of clapping, so that you don't lose that meter, and you also be able. And then the more meter you have, the faster the meter itself will regenerate. So there is a little bit of a strategy to it. It's just, you know, if you think about if you're at like a sporting venue, you're not just cheering 100% of the time. You're trying to cheer at very key moments of the event, or, you know, trying to get into a rhythm to amplify your ability to cheer and so forth. But again, these are things that, you know, we as Genvid did not dictate to the developers. The developer is a company called Catapult Studios, based out of New York City. These ideas are things that we worked on together, and we thought a lot about the design, the approach, and everything. And so, you know, this can work. Oh, they both just shot eggs at each other. So they both have the ability to shoot eggs, and I think the 2 eggs just kind of negated each other. But yeah, this is something that we worked together on designing. You can see that there's a lot of nuances that we've thought about. And, you know, to try and make a very compelling, interesting experience for folks to check out. The other thing I just want to point out really quickly is that if I disable the chicken overlay, you can see that things like the clap button disappear. And that's because all of this stuff is not through the game stream itself. It's actually something that the overlay on Twitch provides. It is vulnerable, so it's running out of health. So now we need to cheer as much as we can to just give it a little bit more of a rallying cry, just to give it a little bit more health, so that it can just survive just a little bit longer. You're sort of Rocky moment, essentially. So the feather cat now has about roughly a third life, but that laser blast from the cyborg dodo is really annoying. It does a lot of damage. It has a tendency to shoot it in at close range and at a distance. I think it's totally unfair and overpowered, but it is them's the breaks. So we'll just have to work against it. So if we cheer for it again, we might be able to give it a second or third wind at this point to be able to maybe topple the cyborg dodo. Oh, they start throwing a bunch of eggs at each other. Now they're just biting each other, and the feather cat just gets itself railed again. It's almost out of health. Maybe a little bit longer. We just need to survive till the end of the round, so we can just survive for the next 11 seconds. Oh, unfortunately, that's just not enough. I generally lose at about the cyborg dodo. You can see that it attacks a lot, and its attacks land a lot, and that's really frustrating. The Majestic Feather Cat also had this ability that I wanted to mention earlier, where it can teleport behind you. So these abilities are sort of crazy. It shoots eggs, it teleports behind you, has a bite. I think that it even has this, because it has bird wings, it has this ability to blow you away and stun you also. All sorts of weirdness. But that's the intrigue of this game, is that it's so strange, but there's just this weirdly attractive thing to it. And it's also just because all these abilities are so diverse, it really lends itself to experimentation and just letting you just kind of go wild with creating some of these different creatures.
Thank you very much. That was terrific. It's a lot of fun. Okay, cool. Well, that's our time basically on the big screen gaming track for this morning. Is there anything else that you guys would like to say in conclusion, or shall we break for lunch there?
Chris, you got anything?
Yeah, no, just thanks everybody. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Cool.
And
awesome. Thanks very much to Genvid for that demo. Very exciting, the potential that technology has. And thanks again to Genvid for sponsoring the big screen gaming track this morning. We are going to break now for lunch for a little under 2 hours. We'll be back here at 3 o'clock UK, that's 4 o'clock CET, for the afternoon sessions. I will be back at 5 o'clock to host a fireside chat with Dan McAuliffe from Bungie, but the rest of the time will be in someone else's very capable hands. So it just remains for me to say thank you very much for attending the morning session at Big Screen Gaming UK, Pocket Gamer Connects, sorry, Helsinki Digital. And I'll thank our sponsors one more time. Genvid, the Diamond sponsor Agora, our Platinum sponsors Microsoft GameStack, Denuvo by Erderto and Facebook Gaming, and our Gold sponsors are Plovin, Unity, G-Star, 10 Square Games, Twitter, and Singular. Thanks again for watching the morning sessions, and be back here in a couple of hours. Cheers.
thank you, Richard.
Bye-bye.